Welcome to my Bob Thurman podcast. I'm so grateful some good friends enabled me to present them to you. If you enjoy them and find them useful, please think of becoming a member of Tibet House US to help preserve Tibetan culture. Tibet House is the Dalai Lama's cultural center in America. All best wishes. Have a great day.
This is episode 336.
Okay. So welcome, everybody. I'm so delighted and honored to have with me today the wonderful Henry Shukman, Roshi Henry Shukman, I must say. And I have a really proper introduction for him, a little bit, thanks to my beloved Beth Grossman, who is our arranger, or what we call Saki in Sanskrit, the mediating friend. Henry Shukman is a poet, author, and Zen master in the Sanbo Zen lineage. After a spontaneous spiritual awakening at the age of 19 on a beach, as I recall, he embarked on a long journey of healing and deeper awakening through meditation. Since then, he has been leading a growing number of practitioners in Europe and the US. He is the spiritual director emeritus, I think a bit young for emeritus, but anyway, emeritus of Mountain Cloud Zen Center in Santa Fe, which I read the description of in one of his books, and which is must be a beautiful place. I look forward to visiting if I ever get there. New Mexico. Henry has also created an app, a meditation app, which I'm sure is very solid from reading about how he describes meditation, called The Way, a new first of its kind meditation app which offers a single long-term path into the deep end of meditation. That's wonderful. So welcome, Henry. So happy to have you here.
Well, I'm totally honored and delighted to be in your presence on Zoom. You know, I've been a big fan for many a year.
Really?
Yeah, and
I only recently discovered you, which shows my total backwardness, because you are a fantastic writer. I'm so humbled by your excellent way of writing. Oh, I should say Henry went to Oxford as well as got to be a Zen master. And he's really brilliant, no question about it. And when you read one of his books, you really enter into the action. And it's so learned also, and it's but without it very lightly, For the Zen master's lightness, it's incredibly learning Western as well as Eastern things, So it's really worthwhile. And also our main topic of today is this wonderful book, Original Love, The Four Inns on the Path to Awakening, which are really excellent inns. You could stay at any one of them. I decided from reading a little bit about them. So anyway, Henry, so great, Henry. So where are you at now? How come you're an emeritus? You're so young. I mean, you have a nice beard, but you are definitely still young from my perspective.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I hope I could have your longevity and health span, maybe. But I'm actually 62, so I'm not that young, really.
Young.
Well, it's been a long, hard slog for me to get just a little bit sort of clearer and more sort of less ruled by my own psychology, over the decades. It's taken a long time, and I'm lucky to have a Zen sort of lineage and organization that I was okay to be with. I was very fussy. I didn't like a lot of spiritual organizations. I didn't like being part of a community. I thought they were all a bit cult-like and strange. And I was very, I was a solitary kind of, I was married, but as far as spirituality at all, I was very suspicious. And distrustful for a long time, and I just got lucky, I think, with one particular teacher who was very ordinary man. He wasn't trying to be special. He was just super ordinary, a retired lawyer.
Was that Yamada Roshi, Yamada Kohn?
Well, no, this was actually, he probably was the same, but I actually was, my first teacher that I really started feeling okay with was called John Gaynor. No titles. I mean, he is actually a Roshi, but he never used that word. And he was an Englishman, and sometimes we just meet in a cafe to have, so-called dokusan, or at a bus stop. It was very ordinary.
Really? You met him at a bus stop?
Yeah, sometimes sitting on a bench in Holland Park, and in London. And I liked the ordinariness. It was easier for me to trust it, actually, rather than the robes. I mean, I think it's fine to have robes if you want that. Of course, it's none of my business to judge that. But just for me personally, I didn't want practice that was really different from how I was and how like the world was. I sort of felt it ought to not need to be so different, and I come from England, which already has a lot of cultural baggage, a lot of convention, and a lot of, hidden, sort of semi-hidden formality in the structures of relationship and all the class system and everything. And I didn't want to leave that and replace it with another set of conventions.
That's totally great. I completely agree with you, actually. And I particularly do love the Dalai Lama so much because he does occasionally in a ceremonial setting, he has the robes, he's a Buddhist monk, blah, 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 sits up on a big throne and this and that. But then when off that, he totally is informal. And he will not tolerate all kinds of groveling and weird behavior on the part of Westerners particularly. He can't quite avoid it completely with Tibetans who have ingrained cultural thing about it. But even there, he tries to encourage them not to be like that and to be very informal. And if we get to it, I might mention some occasions where you see his extreme insistence on people recognizing his ordinariness as well as his extraordinary. So I agree with you. My original teacher, in fact, when I first met him, I thought I was in a very powerful field, but I thought the big Lama on the dragon with the robes and the whole thing was in another room, and he was like some kind of inferior third-degree secretary because he was like so simple, like wearing a lungi, and it was like I didn't think he was the source of that field at all when I first met him, and I hardly considered him. I was waiting to see a guy on the dragon.
Yes.
And then later I discovered, and then all through our study, he refused to be my guru. He said, no. He said, I'm not enlightened enough to be your guru, and you're not allowed to have a guru. And if I act like your guru and you pretend that I am, and then when I scold you or criticize you, you'll be really angry with me, that's terrible sin for you and for me. So I'll just be your friend. And then when you pour on too much soy sauce on the dumpling, then I'll give you hell. So I completely agree with your skepticism and your suspicion. I really like it, and I really like your so that's your reason for your emeritus, because at the end of by the way, I should mention to the audience, you have another wonderful book called One Blade of Grass. This one, I don't know if you see it backwards like I do.
No, we're seeing it straight. It's looking right.
One Blade of Grass, and it's a story of your, beyond the 19-year-old thing, much deeper, more totally amazing experiences that are described very, both humbly, but accurately and very powerfully. It's extraordinary, I think, extraordinary book as well. And in that, I'm very suspicious of people having enlightenment experiences, totally. And I think you did a wonderful job with it. I really think so.
You're very kind. Thank you. Of course.
Also, when you first then went for teacher training and you're sort of Roshi, like a little bit higher authority, sort of in your order. And I also like that you're critical of some gurus and masters in the West who set themselves up as something new and they know better than the tradition. And blah, 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 and then they don't really make a fuss about the lineage and the ancestors, spiritual ancestors, beyond familial and tribal ancestors, spiritual ancestors. And you completely cover that base beautifully, I think. So that, which gives one tremendous relief, because otherwise it's kind of dangerous when someone declares themselves. That's all, it starts with them, It's a
I,
little bit worrisome.
I
And
agree. I think it's tricky territory, and the more we can really, I don't know, be skeptical about ourselves and skeptical about our own, spiritual accomplishments, so to speak. I mean, the better, because it's so easy to mislead oneself.
yes, yes, totally.
Mm.
The idea that one could be suspicious of one's own continuing thoughts, having
Yes.
returned from the vastness, and then having a little thought of some kind of one of those obstacles, that you did so beautifully. You mentioned the aversion, desire in the original love book. I would just opened the page just before because I wasn't sure where I would ask you. You talk about the hindrances,
Yeah.
which are from way back in Buddhism, from Theravada: desire, aversion, dullness, restlessness, and doubt, and which are different from klesha, right? These are meditational hindrances, I believe,
Yes.
right, to
Yes.
developing samadhi, one-pointedness. And you unpack these very thoroughly in the app? Do you introduce them to people with the app? If you want to
Yes.
tell us a little about how you do it in the app, it would be great.
Yes. I mean, in principle, my sort of working theory kind of thing is that, in a sense, sort of, I mean, this may sound counterintuitive, but in a certain sense, kind of, I feel that nothing need be a hindrance, actually. If we can only understand what we're experiencing and
Mm-hmm.
really break it down into its parts and just let it be. I really feel that the wisest words of all are let it be, let it be, because actually I find, I mean, again, I don't know whether I'm right, but I do find that anything I really dislike that comes up in meditation, if I can just track it down and be with the actual sensation that I'm finding difficult and somehow find a little shift can happen where I just thoroughly allow it, then, it can very often become beautiful and,
Mm-hmm.
and actually bring on, well, as you know from the title of the book, I think sort of a sense of love even
Mm-hmm.
can kind of open up around what had seemed to be an obstacle. And
Mm-hmm.
and when that love opens, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
really all is well, all is okay. Yes, maybe something sort of to work on in some way, but the love is more important, really.
Yes, that sounds really great. That's very tantric, actually. I
Yeah,
mean, if these
right.
hindrances, how do you distinguish then between the hindrance and the meditating, which you beautifully say you overcome by welcoming and then trying to include it in your scope of original love, which I think I mean I utterly admire. So don't get me wrong. But on the other hand, if you're filled with hatred, if for example you've had a terrible thing happen, somehow you survived a Holocaust or something, but your relatives didn't, so you're bitterly driven by resentment and this and that, then but don't you actually want to get rid of that yourself for it because it will eat away at you?
Yes, yes, but then how do
How
you
do
get?
you deal with it? We love it that you're sensitively reacting. I can see that, and welcome that you're not ignoring the plight of those who suffered so badly and the evil of those who committed the evil. But then on the other hand, the resentment that eats at you separately, how do you overcome it? How does that overcome it?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. But really, in my simplistic view, even that resentment, I want to, I want to know it in my own
Yes.
experience.
Right.
And,
Okay. Yes.
and once again,
Yes.
find how can I allow this resentment? Because it is if it's arising, it's arising. I,
Okay.
I want to start with allowing it. and basically love it to death. I mean, in the balm, in the solvent, in the solution of great, boundless, unconditional love, it will
Yes.
dissolve, for real. And it's not just a
Yeah.
sort of a trick I can deploy as needed, and then I
Yeah.
get off the cushion and bam, it's back again. No, it actually can really dissolve. I mean, honestly, I had 42 relatives I never knew in the Holocaust.
Yeah.
There was a Shukman,
Exactly.
spelt differently, lived in a little village in southeastern Poland,
Yeah.
and in 1939 there was a census in that village, and there were 42 people called Shukman. And in 1946 there was another census. Of course, there were none, and all of them died in this camp called Sobibor, which was not too far away, one of the earliest camps. They
Oh,
didn't
really? What was it called? The name of the camp?
Sobibor.
Sobibor.
Yeah. It actually predates the gas Cyclone B. They were using exhaust fumes to begin with from
I see.
trucks.
So that was more
And
of a work camp than an extermination camp. They worked them to death. Is that right?
well, no, and they used exhaust fumes from trucks to kill them.
Oh,
Yeah. And I recently, I mean, literally in the last 2 months, somebody sent me a white stone from Poland, a Polish friend who's translating One Blade of Grass, actually. And he
oh,
sent me this white stone. And I opened up the little bag. It was a little kind of gauze golden bag, like you might get soap in a fancy hotel. And I opened this little bag, pulled out this white stone, and something in me, I didn't know what it was actually when it arrived, but something in me knew. And I started tearing up, and I felt this great flush of warmth and feeling flow through me. And it turned out it was actually a little stone from the memorial field of stones at
oh,
this camp.
Sobibor.
And my
Wow.
relatives all died. What had, and I, when one of my, another of my Zen teachers started asking me to go to Germany to teach,
Yes, yes.
in some 12 years ago or so. And
Mhm,
I didn't really want to go because
mhm, mhm.
I had grown up with British and Jewish sort of
Sure,
horror, terror, kind of, I
sure.
didn't want to know about Germany. I just didn't want to know about it.
Mhm,
Really I closed it off from my sort of world almost. It was a blank space where Germany was.
mhm,
But she
mhm.
said, no, you got to go there and
Uh,
start teaching this Dharma the
yeah,
best.
you did go, right?
I went, and I didn't know what to do about this. All these feelings I had around it was so complicated. And the first talk I gave, I thought I can't just say nothing about what it's like for me. And I don't really speak German, but a little bit. I learned a little bit at school. Among the many languages we were taught back then in England, there was a
Uh-huh.
bit of German. And I began, Ich bin ein Halbjude. Halbjude,
That's
halb
good.
Britannischer. I'm a
Uh,
half Jew, half British, half Jewish. And
yes.
on both sides, I was taught or inherited this denial really of the sort of Germany's not in our world, in our
Mhm,
field. And actually it became something in me loosened just saying those words in front of all these German people. And I realized, oh my God, there's a whole cluster of unforgiveness, of unreconciliation, of
mhm,
unacknowledgement, that and unwelcoming,
mhm, mhm,
refusal.
mhm,
I'm carrying. And I sort of feel if I'm carrying it anywhere,
mhm,
somehow, somehow the whole field is a little bit compromised and blocked, and
mhm,
it helped to
mhm.
just
Sure it
put
did.
myself, you know,
Sure
the,
it.
the heart softened and
Mhm,
something expanded and some resistance melted, and I
mhm,
sort of, I believe that love actually, it sounds so corny, but I sort of feel that love is the way.
mhm, mhm.
And,
Course.
uh,
Well, I totally agree with you. And I was so delighted after reading the Blade of Grass to read the original. Why did you say original? What did you mean? What do you mean? Well, first of all, how do you define love?
Yeah. Well,
How do you define it?
yeah.
I know it's all things are beyond definition. Ultimately, I realize. But
Yes.
relatively, how do you define love?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, in the case of this, I'll just say something about original first, then about love. So,
Okay.
original, actually, I was trying to criticize, in a way, two things. The first was original sin,
Oh, good. Yes.
which I think is a really, I mean, a lot of us may not really believe in it, but I think it's infiltrated Western culture
Oh,
in
sure.
insidious ways. And I really feel that we may not like to admit it, but there's a lot of unworthiness. It's common in the West, and like it or not, but
Uh,
so original love, I think, is sort of better. If you're going to have one original thing, let it be original love.
So I was resonating with that one. It's one that's wonderful, wonderful.
Well,
Really.
but on the other hand, as well, in Zen, there's this. It's sort of a koan, and it's also a kind of not a doctrine, but a sort of a view, or perhaps a pointer.
Original face.
Original face, exactly. Have you seen your original face that you had even before your parents were born? So have you found what you really are? Have you
Ah,
found what you really are that predates you, predates your parents, perhaps predates everything? But you can find this thing that's sort of without time, except
yes.
it's not really a thing, but we don't know to call it. But I think, and again, I'm open to being wrong, but I find that in my own case, the times that has been clearer and the discovery of it, and
Yes.
students and friends, when they discover it, there's always a feeling of love, like I am beloved. All of this is beloved. No separation anymore. It brings on a
Yes.
strong wave of love, I find.
Yes. I think that's totally wonderful. I love that. And it's original, but it's happening right now too, right?
Yes, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because there's some sense in which, of course, this very moment is arising right now, and
Right.
it's
The original.
arising, it's out of that origin, there's no origin, we don't know what it is, the nameless, the formless, but this table in front of me, a computer, and your lovely, beautiful face on the computer, it's all arising right now.
That's right. Did you? So there's a thing where you. I'm trying to look for that. I felt I marked too many corners of too many pages. There was one place where you said something I really loved. I mean, many things, but then I marked so many of these corner pages in the toward the end of your everything gone, where you know, as I heard John speak. John now I guess is your ordinary guru, Roshi,
Right,
right?
right, yeah.
And John speaks just now. I felt as if I were perched on the edge of a great cliff. Before I had time to think about whether I might step off, a thunderbolt dropped on the crown of my head. And then it says, falling off the cushion, lying on the floor, weeping. Everything gone. All the hard work of holding together the world as Henry knew it gone. No more Henry, no more world, nothing, no more Zen, truly nothing, true nothing. Everything annihilated, nothing left, nothing at all. And so on and so on. Not even awareness of nothing. That's very key to me. Not even awareness of nothing. A gap, but not even a gap. Blackness, but not even that. It's hard to know what to call it. Death, perhaps. Death seems aptest term. One impossible fact. Nothing at all. Not emptiness, which might still suggest space with nothing in it. But nothing, nothing to see, no one to see, no seeing. This was reality at last, nothing, not even a witness. The ultimate joke. How can it be a joke? Ah, I really liked it. It's really good. So I worry about it a little bit. But then this other one, that since after that, there's this other one where you say this thing that I felt tremendous relief reading it, where you said this kind of state, according to the old way of thinking. I'm reading his words, by the way, dear participant, and you are a participant. according to the old way of thinking, would obviously wear off after a while as well. Yet year after year, if anything, the wonder and gratitude grew. The space of the heart welling up daily with love. So don't stop worrying about death. It confounded all conditioned expectations. But that's what this practice is for, to deliver such a blow to our conditioned construction of reality that the factor itself is knocked out. Muchimotsu, mujuzo, not one single thing in an inexhaustible treasury. They also say shinku, nyo. Ku means emptiness, right?
Yes.
Ku does mean emptiness, voidness. I prefer the translation voidness, by the way.
Nice. I think literally it means sky.
It's only 2 syllables.
Yes.
Void. And sometimes
nice.
Sometimes it's used as an adjective. The shunya is shunya and shunyata. Right. Sometimes used as an adjective. And then you have to say empty. And then in some Tibetan things about Book of the Dead things, then you have to say the empties. And it always makes you think of beer cans. Pouring in some pollution, some empties.
Throwing out the empties in the morning.
It doesn't get reified quite in that way.
Right.
Yeah. So I do prefer it, but people get shocked. They don't like it. It's too scary, and blah, blah, blah. Shinku myo-u. The true goneness, you say, for emptiness there, which I love that. That's goneness is great. Wondrous being, myo-u. Really, I think this was the one, yeah. You see, this is it. See, to drop into bottomless, timeless, spaceless zero. Did you know that it is zero in ancient Indian mathematics, Shunya?
I did not, no.
It is. And they invented zero. They invented decimal system, not the Arabs. Because they were dealing with astronomical huge numbers. So they invented it, and the word is Shunya. Shunyata. It is.
That's fascinating. I never knew that. I always thought the Arabs had invented zero. How fascinating.
I know, well, that's because they got it from India when they conquered there. And then that's how it trickled into the dark ages in our benighted European background,
Right. Oh, how fascinating. Wow.
Corrected since then. And that is to emerge as wondrous being from which nothing is excluded. It is precisely what is excluded, since it's nothing. The world beyond things, where, although phenomena appear as before, it's impossible to say whether there are or aren't things. It no longer matters. As Master Nanzen said, this is not mind, this is not Buddha, it's not a thing. Especially the tiniest phenomenon is beloved, is love itself. This is the seed of your next book that we're celebrating today. In spite of being limited, mortal, multi-flawed beings, we are nevertheless capable of finding timeless love in the depths of our being. I think it's just really great. And that's where you're at then. You must be helping people find this timeless love.
I'm really hoping to,
Yes, well, your
really
kids know it. I love I want to just say more in my endorsement of dear Henry. When he came home from work to see his beloved wife, his kids were jumping on a trampoline, and they expected him, because they were more in the timeless than him in his organized, conditioned accomplishment mode, expected him to join them on the trampoline, which he actually did. I was deeply impressed by that. And then you flopped up and down and made them bounce up. So you got back to the kitchen as soon as you could, but you did do it. That shows, I think, really the way. In other words, I'll get you guys later, instead of that, you jumped right in with them. I was deeply impressed by that. I really was. Anyway, so what can we best remember now? Now, the other thing you said, when you met the Roshi Yamada Kun, you felt he's very, very deep, and you felt him feel your experience. And you felt very comforted by that, like a kind of seal of approval, a little bit, like you have to use the expression of a hand reached up inside you in the heart and felt sensitively, without intrusiveness, felt where your heart was, and you felt very comforted, and you felt immediate connection and friendship with him. Yeah. But then he rang his bell and kicked you out. What was that?
Well, you know these Zen masters,
Handle that. Yes.
you got enough now. Out you go, But I've, he's become my main teacher.
Yes.
Forgive me, but he's Yamada Ryo-un. This one, he's the son of Yamada Ko-un.
Yeah.
There've been two
Yes, right. Mhm.
sort of influential Zen masters, I think, in the West. But anyway, what was so beautiful then
Mhm.
was that I felt two things, I guess. One was, wow, something in him knows what's going on in me. That level of connectedness that level of discovery or something about who we are could meet. So
Mhm.
that was very beautiful in itself. But on top of that, I knew somehow, because that happened, that he could teach me more,
Mhm.
that I could go further, that
Mhm.
somehow I could, they talk about, you see the ox. This is in the ox herding pictures of Zen. The third one, you get a glimpse of the ox. And then in the fourth one, you catch the ox. So it
Mhm.
doesn't go away anymore. And I thought, well, the way, this has stuck around. Maybe I have now caught the ox, but there's much more. That's only the fourth picture. The
Mhm.
fifth picture is
Absolutely.
taming the ox, and then you ride the ox, and then no more ox. Ox gone. Forget about the ox. And I
Mhm.
thought, I mean, I didn't think of it at the time like this, but I did realize, ah, this man can teach me more. He can guide me further,
Uh-huh.
and he still does, actually. Now it's about it's 17 years later. He's still guiding me, actually. I mean, along with many others, of course, but
Is he your age or is he a little older?
no, he's 84 now,
Oh,
and
he's
he's
right.
still, he looks younger than me. When I look at him, I can't believe he's not 60. And he's very vigorous, kind of slight,
Mhm.
Japanese man, and he's still running a company that's very successful, actually, and still teaching about 100 Zen teachers around the world. So it's
Mhm.
kind of, I don't know how he's very sort of quiet, but just full of smooth, powerful energy. It's, it's very nice to be around, and yeah.
Well, right. When you discover a kind, I mean, at a very simplistic level, when you discover your own emptiness, which you could call transparency, then you automatically become involuntarily empathetic about others. So you also feel their energy completely. And that's what he was doing with you, right? He was feeling your energy, right?
Yes,
So,
I think that's right.
and
Yeah.
so that brings me then to the next question, which was, how do you define love?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. Well, on one level, I would like to just say it's about connection. It's
Mhm.
about it's about, wide and intimate connection,
Mhm.
and not resisting it, and just giving oneself to it. And there's the of course there are many flavors of love, you know,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
I kind of, these days, I think it shows up in various ways, and
Mhm.
all of them are good. It shows up in various ways, and every one of these ways of loving, of appreciating, of cherishing, of, yeah, really appreciating and cherishing, every one of them is probably that same original love in action, showing
Mhm.
up slightly different
Okay.
dimensions, facets, aspects, and
Well,
and so
that's
we,
it. That's very powerful. Well, then, the in the Greek thing, and you're more knowledgeable than I about the Greek thing, but in the Greek thing, you have eros and agape, right, which are differentiated by people.
yes,
I
yes,
understand that eros has a self-centered element to it of desire, of wishing to possess the beloved, right? It's
correct.
and then agape supposedly is altruistic, wishing only for the happiness of the beloved, right?
Yes, exactly. And eros, somehow,
But
in that
you're
classical,
you're saying that they're all good. You're somehow unifying those in a definition of love, which is fascinating, I think.
well, I would qualify that a little bit, because that eros kind of love, also was seen as a kind of malady in some cases in the ancient world.
That's the major way, yes.
Yeah, Greece and Rome.
Mixed with greed. Mixed with greed.
Exactly. The acquisitiveness. I've got to get you. I've got to keep you. I need you.
Yes.
That's not quite the same as what I'm talking about. Is that exactly love? Or
Yes.
is that? I mean, there may be love in there for sure, and there may be those marvelous moments of a kind of melting of the border between me and you. Of course, in intense romantic love. For sure. And that's a wonderful thing. Of course it is. And there can be the thing also that under the spell of romantic love, the whole world becomes radiant and beautiful. And I need you so that I can experience the world this way, But actually, I think it's a mistake. That's one way of opening up to loving the whole world and seeing its beauty. But it's a very conditional way. This practice way it's much less conditional. We're finding that actually we're intrinsically, part of that great love anyway. And we can see the radiant beauty of things, without another that we need, in that way, that sort of greed and desiring kind of way. So, I think Eros is a little more complex. It's not quite so straightforward. I think agape is really my ancient Greek teachers in the UK always pronounced it agape, by the way. But that was agape is a more that appreciative, cherished, wishing well, exactly, altruistic kind of love.
Yes. Well, this is really on a very simple level. My tree, and the word my tree, and which derives for a little bit from mater and a little bit from mitra. Mater means mother, rather, and mitra means friend. Yes. So my tree, which is connected to both words, it has an a and an e, making an I. My ai. And that is simply, that's the agape one, which is just a wish for the well-being and the happiness of the beloved.
Yes.
It isn't as much appreciative as it's a kind of an insistent that the beloved be happy. Right. But then what happens when you do that? What about when someone isn't? Then what happens? For example, when Roshi felt your openness in your core that you had experienced, and that powerful thing that you described so beautifully at the end of the blade of grass, what would you call his ability to feel that in you?
Yeah.
I'm fishing for empathy.
Yes, got you. Yes, that would indeed be empathy.
Right.
That would be again, I think it would come out of some sort of a boundlessness or borderlessness.
Yeah. So where he's feeling you as much he's in your skin as much as in his own, so to speak.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And then if you think of enlightenment as multiplying that inconceivably, then it's a terrible story of being empathetic with highly suffering beings, or beings who consider themselves highly suffering.
Yes.
But then how do we manage that? Can love overwhelm that?
Yes. Well,
the feeling of suffering, does love overwhelm it, then how?
Yes. Well, some say, that compassion overwhelms that. Karuna, the wish that others suffer less. The wish to relieve suffering is the thing that can overcome the swamping that empathy may produce. And,
yes.
And I think
yes, although then I don't really like in the Sanskrit treatises, psychologically scientific treatises. They etymologize. They love doing what Westerners call folk etymologies. They break up the syllables of a word, and so karuna, and the na is a negation, So then, and karu can mean sort of an expansive feeling of well-being in the heart. So karuna means give up the feeling of well-being in your own heart because you feel the suffering of another. So in a way, it is really etymologized as empathy. But then there's the warning that empathy would just drag you into the other being's suffering. And if you had a wide openness, you would be a basket case. Buddha as a basket case. awakened being. So what is the way of overcoming that, or is it overcome? So then you, as a Buddha, you have to love yourself, of course, right?
Yes, yes. But then
And
what?
you have to welcome your own being a basket case. But
Yes.
I know I'm just trying to
Yes.
get. I'm fishing to see.
Yes, yes. I sense that you are. Yeah. Well, let's see whether I've got what you're fishing for. I may not have it, but
I
I
think
would
you have original love.
original love sees that, actually all is empty, all is one thing, and nothing is left out, nothing is excluded. So actually, in a certain sense, well, dare we say it, but in a certain sense, suffering, it's hard to say it, but it is illusory in some level. It is actually an appearance like so many others, but only an appearance. And to see through it, you actually, I mean, for example, if you're just having a strong negative emotion,
Mm-hmm.
first thing you think is, I want to get rid of it. But actually, there's another way of just seeing clearly that it's empty.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ceases to be a problem.
So you're seeing through it
Seeing through it.
somehow,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like when you hit the big nothing, what you called in the first moment the big nothing, you sort of saw through all your quests and all your possessions and
Yes.
your life and death.
Yes. And also my spiritual quote unquote path. Zen, even Zen. I thought after that Zen is definitely not done. I mean, maybe it's never done, but Zen is not done. And at least as long as you think there is a thing called Zen.
Exactly.
It should self-destruct.
Zen, which actually derives from the word for meditation, right?
Yes, jhana. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The Tibetans have a thing. You recounted in one of the books, I forget which one, about how someone who was into the Tibetan thing told you that Zen had Dzogchen. Oh, Richie Davidson told you, that's right.
Yes.
They had Dzogchen, where they sort of also went to letting go of everything and so on, like Zen. And so you were pleased, Chan or Zen, so you were pleased with that. I thought that was fun. And Richie, a Zen master. I've known him for so many years, and I do love him too. And right, so in a way, when you had your big nothing, what you had was just a huge relief.
Yeah.
In a way, although
Yes.
you couldn't sit and say, "Now I have relief," because in a way you were relieved. You weren't trapped in relief.
No, 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 no. And that's when, I mean, I wonder whether this would, I remember there was some sense of like seeing that the whole process of going through a spiritual training such as I'd been through was kind of a charade. It was like a game of hopscotch that pretended it was going somewhere, but it had never really been going anywhere all along. And there was just this, and it's a Zen phrase. I know that I don't really want to use somebody else's phrase, but it's a good one for this. It's just some utter simplicity.
Someone
Utter simplicity.
actor imprisoning.
Utter simplicity.
Utter imprisoning.
No. Utter simplicity.
Utter simplicity. Oh yes, of course. Thank you. Yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Utter simplicity. Yes.
My terrible accent. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's my hearing. It's the thing. So yes. So in a way, could it be that even beings who are suffering, supposedly they don't know what they're doing, right? Right? They know not what they're doing, right? Because they have misknowing. I don't like ignorance, the word ignorance, for avidya, which was glossed as asatvidya in Sanskrit. The great masters, of India, they glossed it as asatvidya, which means actually knowing what is not the case as if it was the case.
That's great.
And actually, Oxford Dictionary has misknowledge in it. There is that word, but it's archaic. It's like that nobody uses it. But I use it for avidya, misknowledge.
That's very good. That's very good.
Comprehension. We have misperception, but we never have misknowing. But I like to use that.
That's lovely.
They don't know what people don't know what they're fully really feeling. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
So therefore, even their deadly suffering, is there another thing that they have? In other words, is their Buddha nature suffering?
Yeah, exactly. They are, I would say, original love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, Mark Epstein. Do you know Mark Epstein?
I've never met him, but I've read a couple of his books. They're wonderful.
Aren't they fun? I love Mark. I do. He's a dear friend. He lives nearby me here in the Catskills. And we do a seminar together once a year, usually in August. And a long time. And he used to write books like about the trauma of everyday life, and now he's finally giving the Zen of therapy, psychotherapy. And then he finally wrote Advice Not Given, which was where he think it would be intruding Buddhism to use it in his therapy, so he didn't. But he wrote about it, what he felt like doing, and then finally it's the Zen of psychotherapy.
Well, I've got that book on my shelf and I haven't read it yet.
It's a lot of fun. It's fun. And but what I mentioned about him is, I forgot actually.
I'm sorry, I derailed you. Yeah.
No, I'm derailed myself. You get older, you do derail because you interrelate so much, and then you forgot what it was about. I had a reason, and it will pop back in a minute, but it was very, very fun. What I was going to talk about with him, but I can't remember what it is now. Totally lost it. It's being in your presence. I lost it. Let go of it.
Well, it's all is well. Just sitting here like this is very nice.
It is. Would you like to? Let's see. How are we going? So, would you like to lead a meditation and for people? I think it would be
sure.
nice if you did. If you like, if you don't have one in front of you, I have a bell here, which I can.
I don't have a bell. I don't have a bell in front of me. What?
I can do it for you if you'd like to lead them in a meditation on original love. One of your, which maybe you have also on your app. I'm sure you've done it a zillion times. But if you'd like to take 10 minutes or however long you like,
let's do it right now. Yeah, for sure. And you'd like to do it now, correct?
Yeah. Would you like to?
No, sure. 10 minutes.
All right, yeah. I'll ring the bell for you. Okay.
Thank you. And I'll give some guidance. Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear. Was that the bell?
Oh, you didn't hear it?
No, I didn't hear it. The Zoom must have kind of canceled it, but yeah. Okay. That was it, yeah? It's funny, I'm not hearing the bell, but you rang it already?
Yes. Apple doesn't like it. I don't know why.
Okay, well, let's assume, everybody else heard the bell. So let's just, wherever you are, just find a way to be comfortable. Let's start with the body being comfortable. You might, if you're sitting with your back free, it's good to be balanced. If you're reclining with a supported back, of course, that's just fine. Just rest as you are and deliver your spine into the support. Really deliver it into the open hand of the support. And if you're sitting with back free, then tune into the crown of your head, a little area at the top of the head, and let it be floating right over your seat. Either way, let your jaw now go slack. Imagine that there's a velvet pillow under your jaw, and the jaw is resting on it. You might feel it really sink 1/8 of an inch. Likewise, let's allow the shoulders to settle and rest and be slack. And let the arms also dangle completely slack, like old rope. Notice that the throat can be soft. Again, just check that your jaw is loose, sinking. Throat and tongue are relaxed. And let this looseness and softness spread into your chest and into your diaphragm and your belly and seat. Upper legs, knees, lower legs, ankles, all also loose, warm, soft. And the feet and the toes. So whole body at peace. This whole body at rest. Resting. Really resting. We might think of meditation as not really meditation, just coming back, just returning to a home that's always been here. Just to touch it is intrinsically restful. It requires nothing of us. It's a home. Home that, in a way, we never really left. But we might have thought we did. We're just coming back, returning to a home that's been with us all along and is here right now, here, home. Eyes may be open and lowered or closed, it's fine either way. And let yourself listen. Notice if somehow the surroundings, they too are home. As if we've noticed now that our surroundings are also at home. Just as they need to be. Just as they are. Let yourself listen. Hearing the sounds of the world. Is there some way in which all these sounds are arising just for you? Just for you to experience them. Almost like it's a private or intimate world around you. a world that you're closely connected with, sort of your world. Where you're really at home here. Resting. It may sometimes seem as if we've been bouncing around like a pinball in a machine. And there's been a place waiting for us to roll back into right here. And it requires nothing of you. It loves you. It's pleased to have you back. And something in you is also pleased to be back. Resting. Resting. And perhaps sensing that out of the rest, a lovely, special kind of awareness emerges. Sweet awareness. An awareness that lets everything arise just as it does. Welcoming. Welcoming this moment. Just now, nothing need be different. Just now. Just for now. You're home. So if I had a bell, I'd ding it right now. Ding. Just bring in just a little gratitude for our being able to sit together like this and meet like this and participate in this gathering just like this. Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I enjoyed meditating with you. I want to come and now you're emeritus, but I would like to come and sit with you in the mountain cloud Zendo. Do you still ever lead, even as emeritus? You occasionally lead sittings there.
Yes, yes, indeed. And it would be the hugest honor to have you come and lead us if you ever were able to get out here.
So you didn't move to a different Zen center. That's why you're just emeritus, so you don't have to be there every day or something.
Yes, yes. And there's two new
Like,
teachers
you're
there.
writing more books, I presume. Yeah.
Well, that, but also I've been, making this app, and
You're working more on the app. Oh, good.
yes, and we also have I have a meditation program called Original Love as well,
Oh,
which
wonderful.
it sort of follows the
It's going to be in the app. It's in the app, you mean, or you mean you have it as a retreat or something?
Yeah, both ways. It's in the app, but we also occasionally have in-person retreats, and we have Zoom gatherings,
Oh,
usually one or two a month.
yes. You know,
They've
by the
been
minute,
little-
yes, the minute we sat meditating, why I mentioned Mark Epstein came in my mind
good. Yeah.
was when he met Ram Dass toward the end of Ram Dass's life in Maui, having been an undergraduate student of Richard Alpert in Harvard like 50 years earlier. And then Ram Dass said to him in his halting way, because after his stroke, he said, so you're a psychiatrist now, huh? Sort of thing. And Mark said, yes. And so then Ram Dass said, do you, after some pausing, because he was speaking slowly like that, he said, do you see your patients as already free? He said, and then Mark affirmed that with a little hesitancy. So that was what connected to our idea of the Buddha nature, even in the suffering person. That's why I thought. But it only came back to me when we were in the silent meditation. It was floating in my brain somewhere.
Yes, that's a beautiful way to put it, actually.
It's really
That's a
wonderful.
really beautiful way.
Then my mind did, since I was welcoming my distracting thoughts under your guidance, I was then thinking about Adam and Eve and even God and the serpent, the four characters in that play. And then I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't say, because you might have brought up that tableau in the book, which I missed because I didn't read every word yet. Did you mention it in the book?
Actually, not directly. No, I did not.
Oh, well, then let me share. Then if we're going to welcome everybody, then the serpent is like Kundalini, the life force, the force of life itself, right? Another bad guy, it's not a cobra going to kill you. And he wants Eve to enjoy the apple. He nibbles on it himself in the tree. He lives there with apples in the tree. They grow lots of apples. So then she likes it and she wants to have, and then she loves Adam. She wants to feed him. And he takes a bite and they all enjoy. And then God, as their parent, sees they're going to get into enjoyment. So they have the whole planet as the Garden of Eden. And so then some grumpy patriarch later who writes it down makes it like he's banishing them. But actually, who wants to make love with the parent looking on? So they go off to enjoy life with all of their massive progeny and the whole thing. And God is happy to see them on their own, standing on 2 feet, in love with each other, and having beautiful apples to eat.
Yes.
So that could make it all, instead of this horrible original sin, but make it original love.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
a beautiful. I mean, aren't there earlier versions of that piece of mythology where it is more like that?
I don't know.
I think there are in the Middle East.
I know there are rabbinical scholars who go back into not Gilgamesh, which is already patriarchal and I think a little bit irritable, but even before that, maybe they find something like that. I don't know exactly. That I don't know.
Yes, I think I remember reading somewhere that it was borrowed by those patriarchs. It was an earlier story that they brought in and put their spin on it.
Right. Well,
Wanted
I
to do
just wanted to speak up for God, not to make him a bad guy.
Yeah, I like that. That's
But
beautiful.
because lately, thanks to the Avatamsaka Sutra, the
Flower garland.
Jing, it's in Chinese, the Kigon Gyo in Japanese, I finally decided to give God a break, who I disliked from youth, for his floods and his pillars of salt and all kind of grumpy things that he does. I always consider because he doesn't have a good woman, doomed to permanent bachelorhood.
He needs a Shakti or something.
The occasional visit of the Shekinah, So anyway, but I found out that the 10-stage bodhisattva in the 10-stage sutra, which is part of the Buddha Garland Sutra or the Flower Ornament Sutra, they say the 10th-stage bodhisattva, when they're in the exoteric thing where they might be many lifetimes, as 10th-stage bodhisattvas, rather than get there like in the immediate moment of the whatever, of the moment, in the context of where there's a long history, evolutionary history awaiting them, they like to take birth as the Brahma, which in Buddha's era was the creator, in the people who believed in a creator, which wasn't he, which he disagreed with, but he didn't say that he think that God didn't exist. He just said he wasn't to be blamed for everything. But anyway, that they like to be the Brahma of a particular world system, because as that they can do a lot of good for the human beings and for the other gods and the angels and animals and the whole thing, and they can shape beautiful worlds for them. They can't create it all, and they don't, because it's a cycle. They just co-create with all the living beings, mental intersection of all the beings. So when I heard that, I thought, oh, okay. And he knows some people will project omnipotence on him and hate him when they have holocausts, like Elie Wiesel did and others, and rightfully so in a way, for allowing such awful things if he was omnipotent.
Yes.
But since he's not omnipotent, he's just very powerful, and we have our own karma, so to speak, and we can be our own stupidity. So I decided I would stop being mad at God. Was as a child, and thereby, and then I was so pleased because you know what? My German friend sent me something from, I guess, from German Instagram. Is there such a thing? I don't know. But it was German language. And there was Dalai Lama on that Instagram. And he said, Gott ist unendliches Mitgefühl no, he didn't, no and then unendliches Liebe. Meaning God is infinite or endless compassion, Mitgefühl, and endless love.
Yeah. How nice. Wow. Well, there's
it's all over the place, It's really surprised. But I was pleased anyway. So
oh, that's lovely. Yeah. I mean, it's too bad really that it's become so problematic, really. The doctrines of Christianity and
all doctrines do.
Yeah.
Because why? Because usually in 25 or maybe 5,000 years of patriarchal militarized societies, the government's job, with the collusion usually of the high priest, is to terrorize the citizenry into being afraid of life, of the enemy, the animals, the germs, whatever, the scarcity. And so that they think they need the king or queen and the high priest. So they distort the great Zen people, the enlightened people, the mystics, or whatever, who have to go in hiding, and therefore they become mystics. They have to suppress them, and who realize the joy of everything, and the original love, who realize original love, and they have to people the original terror. They have to terrorize their own citizen, so they control the recording of the wonderful teachings, that the enlightened ones have been giving for centuries. Including the shamans, probably in many indigenous societies.
Yes. Actually, much earlier in my life, I was doing a PhD that I never finished on Homer, and I started Greek.
Oh, good.
I was only 9 when I began learning ancient
Really?
Greek. Yeah, We
So
did
you learned
Latin
enough Greek to do that. That's so wonderful. That's it, with the aorist and all of that, you know.
all that, the aorist, the
We have
octave.
in Sanskrit, you know. It's
What's
very
that?
close. My Sanskrit professor at Harvard, he used to say when he retired, he was going to really finally reread Aeschylus and everyone and Homer in the original, because
Yes.
it's very similar to Sanskrit. And he had learned it as a child, but he then had let it rust, you know, in teaching Sanskrit. He was a very brilliant Sanskritist.
Well,
And
you know, I read all of Homer in Greek, actually,
well, that's
back in my
fantastic.
early 20s. But, you know, and I still love Homer. But nevertheless, you know, there's a view that basically the Homeric cycle, it's all a sort of propaganda for the
Well, it
military.
is, but you know, there. On the other hand, I feel there's a redeeming factor.
Uh-huh.
In fact, the only course I ever was properly diligent of it, as an undergraduate at Harvard until I came back from my Buddhist sojourn,
Yeah.
the only one I went to was a course called Singer of Tales, taught by a person named Albert Lord, who studied oral epic poetry. It was all about oral epic poetry, and he was studying the Yugoslav epic.
Yes.
He was showing how that illuminated Homer and also the Mahabharata in India and various other epics around in other societies. And what he highlighted, or what one came to understand, was that the building blocks of Homer, glorifying the macho, you know, Muscle Beach, you know, heroes and their gory exploits, etc., and all the treachery of the and stealth and wile of war, are put together by the great poet in an overall thing that shows the futility of the whole thing.
Right.
Actually, it's a critique of the bards who used to sing for the kings to make them feel like, yes, my army helped them recruit troops, the propaganda side, you know,
Yes.
with new Achilles's and things. But then when it's put together in the overall work of literature, they're showing that the whole thing is a complete pain in the ass. And Ulysses gets home, and Agamemnon gets slaughtered after he gets home because he sacrifices his daughter to get a wind. I mean, really, and then his wife hates him by that time, and so on. So, and then Troy, which was a wonderful place for business, for the silks and the spices of Asia to come through the Persian roads to the rather crude Retsina drinking, fish eating Greeks, you know. Gets crushed and destroyed, and they don't have any of the luxuries of life, you know.
Oh, that's a lovely view. Actually, it's
So,
consistent with
the Homeric thing takes the power of the poetical propagandists who work for kings and undercuts the whole thing. And then the Mahabharata at the end, children of the victors are killed. So their whole thing of they were defending the family is just completely trashed, actually, you know, by being righteous and winning the war, you know.
Yes, that's fascinating. You know, the very first word of the Iliad in Greek is menin, which means mad rage. And it, you know, it begins men and aedithea peleadu Achilleus. Of the rage of Achilles, son of Peleus, goddess, please sing. You know, so it starts with the word rage. And the last book of the Iliad is when Achilles and King Priam meet, you know, and Priam's son Hector has slain Achilles' great love, Patroclus, and Achilles has killed Priam's son Hector, and Priam comes as a beggar, an old man.
Oh, really?
Good like a beggar. He sneaks into the Greek camp to Achilles' tent to beg for his son's body so he can bury it with proper.
Oh, really? I forgot that completely.
And they fall into each other's arms weeping for their loss, and they forgive one another. So actually, that moment then is the fulfillment of the first word. It's when Achilles' rage is finally ended through forgiveness. So actually, in the end, it is a story of deep love and forgiveness.
Yes, that's wonderful.
But you have to get through, you know, 10,000 slaughters.
Original Love. Did you address that in Original Love?
That is in. I think it's in there. I can't actually remember. My mental capacity is not what it used to be. I think it's in there.
It's more. Yeah. I'm sure. Listen, I look forward to the next one. You have another one on the ways.
You know,
yeah.
I have.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually, you know, I write a lot of poetry. After a long hiatus, I'm writing poems again. So my next book, I hope, will be a collection of poems, actually.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, Henry, it's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to sitting with you if I ever get to there. I will undoubtedly have to give a few Dharma talks in some Buddhist places if I do get there ever. I get invited now and then, and I've just been very lazy. I don't like airports anymore since COVID and since everything. But
I understand.
anyway, I look forward
Man,
to it. If you ever come to Woodstock, and we have a little retreat center called Menla that my wife created here as we were thinking of what to do in our empty nest. And someone gave us land and buildings and things, and we'd love it if you visit there. Maybe you come and teach there if you ever go do seminars and things. We don't have as big an audience as Omega or Kapalo, but we have a good audience, a very serious Dharma people usually.
well, it would be, I'd love to come, and I'd love to sit with you and learn from you more. You know, I'm sure you have a boundless wealth of treasures to share. So I'd be honored either way. And if you want me to offer a little something of my own paltry offerings, I'd be happy to, you know.
I do that someday. I might invite you, or we sometimes do these summits online. So we can invite you to participate in one of them sometime.
Oh, that's very kind. But
very best, and dedicating the merit to everyone becoming enlightened as you and me as fast as possible to put an end to this nonsense like Ukraine and Palestine and Israel and all 72 of them on the planet still,
yes.
They say.
Yes.
May it quickly come to an end by people realizing that life is to be lived joyfully. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. A real honor. Thank you.
My honor. Honor is all mine.
The Bob Thurman podcast is produced through a Creative Commons No Derivatives license. Please be sure to like, share, and repost on your favorite social media platforms. And is brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US Menla membership community and listeners like you. To learn more about the benefits of Tibet House membership, please visit our websites at thus.org, menla.org, and bobthurman.com. Tashi Delek, and thanks for tuning in.